Welcome to the Hot Cage Podcast presented by Cage Wall. This is the podcast for Sunday, April 21st, 2013. On this podcast, we'll discuss everything relevant from UFC on Fox 7, Henderson versus Melendez. So let's start this podcast by welcoming my tag team partner, as always, TJ Craig. TJ, how are you?
Doing great today. How you doing?
I'm good. Let me get your thoughts just initially on the fights.
Man, the prelims were just fantastic. We started off, I think there was only like 3 decisions the whole night, 3 or 4. Man, it was knockout after knockout, exciting fights. Everybody was bringing their A game. It was Strikeforce versus kind of UFC. Man, and those kids, everybody was just bringing it. It was great. Main card, also spectacular. You know, we only had really one down fight, but we'll probably talk about that here in a little bit. But overall, man, I give it an A for because it was just outstanding.
And I guess the question we have to ask is why do you think these UFC on Fox cards are so good? I mean, do you think it's the national audience? Do you think it's, the kind of like playing like a Sunday night football game or a Monday night football game? Because I mean, the UFC would probably love to get a pay-per-view that is of this caliber, but I mean, does it benefit them more to get a huge card on a Fox card or a huge card on a pay-per-view?
You know, like I said in our pre-fight, I think they're putting these cards together on Fox and doing the prelims on FX because your casual fan that's just turning the channels or know that there's nothing really on that Saturday afternoon to the Saturday night, depending on what coast you're on. When you're flipping through channels and they stop to kind of say, okay, what's this UFC about? And then you see fights like we did this weekend, and that kind of grabs the attention. And with that, when you grab an attention of that casual fans, they start becoming a fan. And then that gets you more pay-per-view buys, because you still want the main headliners on your pay-per-view, your John Jones, your Dos Santos, Velasquez, fighters of that caliber are going to still be your main pay-per-view. But when you got fighters like this coming up and with such a talent base, man, you can't not but like it.
Yeah, and I don't know how you couldn't become a fan of the UFC after these fights. So if you kind of were flipping the channels and caught them, then they had to make you a fan. So, all right, let's get into the fights. There's a few things that are going to kind of come out of the fights, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we go along with the fights. First off, I want to kind of group the fights in a certain way. What I want to do is I want to talk about them all because it was such a great card. So what we'll do first is we'll just talk about the alpha male fights, all of them right together. So first up, we had T.J. Dillashaw, who won by TKO, round 1, 422 of it, with punches. Talk to me about the Dillashaw fight.
Hugo had him. He was a viable opponent. I mean, he kind of had Dillashaw kind of guessing there for a little bit. He was working it. Hugo seemed really, really quick too. So when they were coming out in the first part of the fight, he was pushing the pace. Dillashaw was kind of stepping back. He didn't know. He was throwing a little bit of haymakers, and he was trying to get his game plan back under control, and even ate a couple of shots. But towards the end, man, Dillashaw just for some reason he brought on power. He's been working on a stand-up game, and you can really tell that Dwayne the Bang has been in their camp, and you can really start to see these guys start developing more rounded games. So he looked good towards the end of that round. He took it to him, got him with the TKO, and that was it.
Yeah, I pulled out my notebook because I was doing some notes on the fights, and what I noted was that it really was a closer fight than the outcome would have had you believe. Viana looked real good in the scramble, and he was throwing some left hooks that very easily could have ended the fight. The way the fight did end was Dillashaw hit him with a straight right, and then he ended it on the ground. So moving forward, like you said, Dwayne Bang Ludwig, man, making a huge difference for this camp, and we'll get to a little bit more of that as we go along with the fighters, but. I mean, did you see of the guys? Well, I guess we'll talk about this when we move on. I felt like Dillashaw, of the fights that we got from the alpha male guys last night, Dillashaw seemed like he was the most closely matched of all, and the Vegas showed that with the odds, because I think Dillashaw's line was a lot closer than the other guys. So he looked good, and he moves forward, and Viana goes back to the drawing board. So all right. Up next, we're going to talk about Joseph Benavidez. He defeated Darren Uyenoyama. I don't know why I stumble over that name. It's really not that hard. he again with the TKO punches. This one made it to round two, 450 of it. What'd you see out of Benavidez?
That was it. That he could pretty much. He's been working on the stand up game too, but he could go anywhere. Darren is a jiu-jitsu and like a takedown specialist with his ground and pound as well. But Benavidez just looked comfortable everywhere. It didn't matter if it went to the ground for a second or back up on the feet. He just dominated the fight. He, you know, his overall game is getting better, and I'm kind of glad he held off taking another title shot because I think he knew that camp knows what they're doing, and he's well rounded out their game. And so when that next title shot, he can be a little bit more comfortable on the fight and on the ground.
Yeah, and he went to the body. That's what ended it. I love the leg kick by Benavidez, but what I really loved was that he knew the leg kick hurt him, and then he went to the stand up, with the hands, and found that spot again with a left hook. That's what I liked. I liked that he knew he wasn't trying to. I think that Yanayama would have seen that kick coming. So what he did was he kind of he gathered himself, and then he found that spot again with the left hook, and then he even hit it with a right hook to the body. So he looked sharp. Now here's my question moving forward for Joseph Benavidez. Yanayama never really looked for his jiu-jitsu in this fight. Rogan even said he kept his guard open, and he even said which is fine in a grappling match, but you're not in a grappling match. You're not. He has to close that guard and start to work. My question is, does this fight help Joseph Benavidez in any way close the gap between himself and Demetrius Johnson, in that Yanayama is nowhere near Demetrius Johnson?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, because working up on the stand-up, Darren he's quick, so that kind of helps him on finding a kind of a quick opponent on the feet and even trying to go to the ground. But I think with Benavidez, it was working to close that gap and to cut the ring off and working his boxing skills and his stand-up game that he can catch Johnson on the next when he gets the title fight. I think that's where he's going to have to win the game is up top.
I agree. I do agree with you in that I think that my concern for Benavidez is that he looked too sharp in this fight, and he really was never really at a disadvantage. I just hope he doesn't carry that. I hope that he kind of takes this fight with a grain of salt and looks at Yanayama for who he is, and doesn't say this fight really. You can have a good performance, and it really doesn't help you all that much. So if he was a 6 on the way to Demetrius Johnson being a 10, maybe now he's a 7. I don't think that he jumped to a 9 or something like that. All right, up next was Chad Mendes. He defeated Darren Elkins again. Another alpha male guy, Dwayne Bang Ludwig. Thank you very much. Round 1, 108 of it, took him out. Give me your thoughts on Mendes in this fight.
I mean, what do you say? I mean, he used his stand-up game and his power, and it was 108 in the first round, so you really didn't get to see much more than I'm going to knock you out. And he did. He worked up. I mean, all three of those fighters from Alpha Male just had terrific stand-up game, and I think that's a tribute to Dwayne Ludwig coming in and working on all areas, especially the stand-up, and it was shown Saturday night, man. These guys were throwing blows and we're looking for the knockout, and I think they must have had some kind of bet going on to see who could fucking get the quickest knockout because they were all going for it.
Yeah, and in fairness to the guys, I mean, they all had good hands prior to this, but they weren't finishing guys like this. I mean, we know that Mendes took Cody McKenzie just out pretty similarly, but I mean, Dillashaw, Benavidez. Now, also Benavidez has been facing some tougher competition prior to this than a guy like Yanayama, but I mean, for all of them to get such early finishes, it really is a testament to Wayne Bang Ludwig, and it's not often that you see somebody come into a camp and make a change that quickly where all the guys are. Now, listen, maybe it was just a coincidence, but I don't think so. I mean, Ludwig is a serious guy. He's a serious striker, record holder for the fastest knockout in UFC history, tied with Ryan Jimmo. And, it looked like these guys were trying to take his record. I mean, they were all going for it. Yeah. So, moving forward, do you think that this helps? We talked about Dillashaw. We talked about Benavidez. Do you think this helps a guy like Chad Mendes at all in his plight to kind of catch up with Jose Aldo.
I mean, it does. I think they probably would want a little bit longer fight so they can work the skills, because if you look at it, they're not. None of them are really talking or trying to talk about title fight, and I think that's because they wanted to get Dwayne in and work some other areas, and they all needed to mature a little bit more in their game and their game plans. And I don't think they're in a rush to do that, because I think they know what it takes to beat your Jose Aldos of the world, your Demetrius Johnsons of the world. They know what it takes to beat him because they've all matched up with him, and they're working on that and slowly getting to it. I mean, you can't take too much time, but they're taking their time in doing so. So I think it's definitely benefiting them.
You know, and these guys, I mean, they really need to take a step back and really enjoy this time coming up, because, I mean, you can't be on any higher of a level than if you're Team Alpha Male right now. The month of April was definitely yours. Uriah Faber just won by submission, and all three of the other guys, get knockout victories. So, I mean, a week apart from each other. So, man, if you're Team Alpha Male, let's get everybody back in town next weekend and throw one hell of a party, because it doesn't get any better than this. I mean, unless somebody brings the belt back. It just seems like at Alpha Male, for a while, they've kind of been, caught a bad rap about being like kind of a frat house and, having a good time and all that. And I'm sure they do, but they are really focused in on what they need to do right now. I mean, these guys all look sharp. They all look like they're ready to make a run.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you notice, I mean, with Uriah Faber's submission, he was the one, his stand-up is pretty good, and he was working more on his ground game, and so that's what he's been doing. His last his two wins have been by submission, and then you have the three that were just on Saturday, and those guys got good wrestling, but they needed some work on the stand-up, and guess what? They won by TKO. So it seems like they're concentrating on the areas of fighting when they're going into it. That's whatever they've been working on, that's what they want to win by. And it's so far, man, it's the last 2 weeks they're 4-0.
That they are. So all right, let's move on. Alpha Male looks good. We'll move on to a fight that was really earlier on the card, but it wasn't shown until later because of how dynamic it was. We're going to go ahead and give our props to Anthony Njokuani, who defeated Roger Bowling with a beautiful left hook, found a light switch, turned him out on Bowling, and Bowling was kind of asking for it. Wasn't he? He kept rushing in. Really wasn't afraid of Anthony's striking, and he paid the price.
Yeah, he was trying to bum rush, and he even had to take a pretty good takedown that one time. But still, you're rushing in. You got your hands at your side, and all it takes is one clip, and then definitely Anthony found that one-stop connection, and man, it was fucking lights out.
So, like I said, when you're fighting on Facebook or you're even on the earlier prelims, you really can't expect too much moving forward. But I mean, of all the nights to have a beautiful left hook counter, this was not the night to do it, because what do you get for your troubles? I mean, everybody's knocking everybody out. It was just a hell of a night for knockouts, and Njokuani really, had a beautiful one, and I guess he just picked the wrong time to
display
it. Yeah. All right, let's move on. We're gonna go ahead and, but again, props to Njokuani for doing that. Again, like I said, beautiful left hook, beautifully timed, and absolutely. And you know what? Props for him, because you don't see this enough. Props for him for holding back, because he just kind of, I mean, it was a walk-off. He clipped him with that left hook and just stared down at him. So, all right. Moving on, we got Jorge Masvidal defeated Tim Means. Tim Means has been defeated previously, I think he's the guy that got defeated by the sauna, right? Slipped and got KO'd in the sauna. Yeah. He lost today via unanimous decision. It was 29-28 across the board. What'd you see in this fight?
It was it was a decent fight. I mean, they both came to fight. It was 29-28. It seemed like Mendenhall kind of let up a little bit, and I think he could have dominated the whole fight. It just seemed like he couldn't get in the rhythm there for a minute, and once he finally did, he kind of dominated the fight. But it kind of took him a slow start to get started. But it's just something you go back to the gym and you start working on.
Yeah, it's true, and one of the things about Tim Means, he's super tall for a 55er,
Yeah.
And Rogan said in the fight that he seemed like he fought short. So I
Very
mean,
short.
yeah, he seemed like he was the aggressor, but in the end, Masvidal was the victor. So I don't think a whole lot's going to come out of this fight. Um, in terms of moving forward, I don't think either one of these guys is necessarily a contender. They're probably a ways away, but it was an entertaining fight. By a couple of guys. It was unfortunately for them what would have been a not too bad of a fight on a normal night. Kind of was overshadowed by a lot of just guys getting blasted. So speaking of that, moving up next, we're going to go right into the Miles Jury versus Ramsey Najem fight. This fight was really a very well, evenly matched fight that had just a beautiful finish. So talk to me about this fight.
Exactly. I mean, it went around. I thought it was a fucking outstanding fight in the first round. It was really back and forth. I mean, if you look at it, round one, I mean, they both pretty much landed the same amount of punches. It wasn't until the second round where Jerry came out and finally found his game. Uh, and then he landed that one again, that fucking one-hitter quitter. Jury's a young, to me, he's a young cat that looks like he has a lot to grow on, uh, and he looked good. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean he certainly blasted him, and he left no doubt about it. The kid looked good, and I'll even say this because he said it about 47 times in the octagon at the end of his fight. He's trying to come out with a thing called Jury Jiu-Jitsu,
yep.
which is his version of Jiu-Jitsu. He really didn't get into it too much. I mean, he damn sure tried. Joe Rogan sure didn't give him an opportunity to there at the end because I mean the kid just would not let it go. But it was interesting that he was trying to tout his new form of jiu-jitsu on a night when he just blasted Ramsey in the gym's face apart.
Yeah.
It was a great read on his part. Kind of what Dominic Cruz said. Ramsey gets kind of lazy with those punches and he leaves him out there. And he threw a left, and Miles came right over the top of it and kind of threw like an overhand Chuck Liddell right. And just like we said, man, ended the night, just blasted him. I mean, one of those ones where just, the crowd sees it and, you hear the reaction, right? And he, unlike Enja Kawani, followed it up with a little, somewhat of a little Dan Henderson, let me blast you one more time on the way down. Because the ref couldn't get there fast enough. But the kid looked good. And if anybody's wondering what Jury Jiu-Jitsu is, I will definitely encourage you to Google it and figure out what the fuck that kid's talking about. But he certainly knows how to throw right. And Ramsey Najim found out the hard way. So again, he looks like a good, like he's got a bright future ahead of him. He's a young guy. For Ramsey, both these guys are both a couple of former Ultimate Fighters. So I'll be interested. He really caught my eye in this fight. Not just because he knocked the guy out. He looked sharp. Seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. And Ramsey brings a lot to the table. He's one of those guys that's like a high-volume guy. Again, he does get a little sloppy with his strikes, so you kind of have a feeling that maybe that led to his demise here. But I'm going to keep my eye on Miles Jury moving forward. All right, so next up we're going to talk about Francis Carmont and Lorenz Larkin. Lorenz Larkin is a former Strikeforce fighter. Carmont fights out of the George St. Pierre's fight camp. I know that because St. Pierre was cornering him with hair, mind you, which anytime I see St. Pierre with a little hair grown out, I get a kick out of it. But Carmont won the decision 29-28. What'd you see in this fight? What'd you think?
I was surprised with the strikes that they gave him. Larkin pretty much landed more strikes than Carmont did, but it was the way he controlled the ring. It was that kind of that magician kind of fake you out. I'm gonna control this fight and win it. I mean, it was pretty much the totals of significant strikes was 32-12. So, which with Larkin landed more, but with the takedowns, I mean. Carmont had a couple takedowns, and Larkin couldn't pass it up. So, and ultimately he controlled it a little bit more, and he landed a couple of significant strikes. But, to me, that fight could have went either way. So, you know, on Larkin, I wouldn't keep your head down too much because you definitely outlanded him. Just next time, man, just like you can't leave it up to judges, you gotta go in there to finish.
You do, and I don't know what Lorenz Larkin. He had some interesting techniques in this fight. I mean, he was doing the spinning back kick to the leg, to the lower leg, which I actually liked. I thought that was a smart way to attack it. It does seem like a little bit to do for when you could just kick him with the leg straight on. Now, Carmont was switching stances a lot. He just seemed like the aggressor. Sometimes when you're the aggressor, it does benefit you. Now, the thing I'll say about Lorenz Larkin, and they said it in the fight, this guy, his balance is amazing, man. He fought off many a takedown. Leg way up over Carmont's shoulder, fighting off takedowns. So from that perspective, I want to get the guys from MMA Decisions on, and I've kind of reached out to them, and we've had an agreement they're going to come on because I want to know what it is. There's got to be a better way to judge, man, and we got to figure out what it is because if you're trying to take me down, TJ, we've talked about this 1,000 times, so I'm going to repeat it now. If you're trying to take me down and you get credit for taking me down, all right, why do I not get the same credit for stopping your takedown? I don't understand it. If you try 8 takedowns and get 8 takedowns, 3 around. Okay, let's say you have 9 takedowns in a fight, 3 around, all 3 rounds. Okay, you're going to win that fight. Chances are. All right. Now, if you try 9 takedowns, 3 around, all 3 rounds, and I stop all 9, and we're pretty much even on the feet, how have I not won? Yeah. I just don't understand. Or if you're trying for a submission and you don't get it, why do I not get points for that? I just think there has to be a better way to score. And the reason why I say that is, while Carmont was pushing the action, it's almost like they're kind of giving him props here for attempting submissions that ultimately he didn't get. Even when he got a submission, Larkin was working a pretty serious Kimura, almost had it. Carmont rolled out of it. So I don't know, man. When I watched the fight, I don't think that I really was thinking that Larkin was the overly aggressive guy, or that he was kind of there's a lot of schools of thought when it comes to decisions. Like the old "who would you rather be" school of thought in a fight, the old who's pressing the action school of thought. I didn't really feel like Larkin won, but I just don't know what they were giving Carmont credit for. It's weird. It's kind of one of those weird fights.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the judging is far from perfect because you're right. It has to be somebody has to finally step up and get this under control because you're right. When you're pressing, you're suppressing the takedowns, or if you're working off the bottom, even working guard or whatever, or trying for a submission, that's got to count for something. And it just seems like if you're kind of pushing the fight, but yet you're getting stuffed on your takedowns. I mean, who's to say you're winning the fight? I mean, but that's how they see it. They see it the aggressor because I'm pushing forward, and then the other guy's moving back, but he's landing more. So it's definitely not a perfect system. But and I don't know what it's going to take to have it changed, besides knowledge and education. But really, with this sport growing so big, I don't know if we have time for that.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem. Even in our language, this is not to come down on you. I understand why you said this because everyone says it, but it's not even so much that it's not a perfect system. It's a seriously flawed system.
Absolutely.
And if we look at it like it's broken, then it'll need to be fixed. If we look at it like, that's the best we can do, then it has to be looked at like when Rogan said that the eye poke situation could be fixed by using different gloves. Somebody inventing a glove that doesn't, separate the fingers like that. If you look at that like it's a problem, then we'll fix it. But if we kind of look at it like, I think that most of the time, fights that even go to decision aren't that close. So nobody cares. To me, one of the funniest things, and another thing I want to talk to the MMA Decisions guys is about, it's funny when you see a decision happen. It's almost like you should have like a drinking game or some kind of game beforehand where you pick who's going to be the rogue judge. Because there's always going to be a guy that goes 30-27 for the fucking wrong guy, and it's almost like they all get together and go, all right, we know who won, but who's going to go 30-27 for the fucking loser so we can just kind of keep these guys on their toes. It's almost like the judges are in collusion to make themselves look like assholes. I don't know why you would do that, but it seems like they're kind of like, well, we can't make ourselves we can't make ourselves look competent. So who's gonna make us look not competent this fight?
No.
It's insane. All right, let's move on. We'll start to get here into the main card with the bonus winner this evening. Oh, before we go on to that, I want to talk about one of the other bonuses. Yoel Romero won one of the knockout of the nights because there was no submission of the night. Looked great, as a matter of fact. The funny part about his fight is that when I was sitting there looking at it, it kind of was like if you could find a guy that looked exactly like Yoel Romero, it would be Clifford Starks. It looked like it looked like two fraternal twins were fighting each other. You know, they weren't exactly the same. They weren't like Tiki and Rondé Barber, but they looked enough alike that you're like, Jesus Christ, which one of these guys is who? So, but yeah, at the end of the fight, we knew who was who, and it was Yoel Romero. He was the guy that took Starks out in the first, and with a beautiful flying knee, and then finished it on the ground. I mean, that knee was about as right on the money as you're going to get. And props to him. He's not an American guy, but after the fight, he sent his heart out and hearts and his prayers and his thoughts to Boston. So good for him. All right, up next, we're going to hit. Did you have anything really to say about that, or was it just pretty straightforward?
No, that was pretty straightforward, just like his knee was.
All right, so listen, let's move on to the main card with the fight of the night. It was Matt the Immortal Brown, Jordan Meehan. You gotta say that you got a hell of a fight on your hands when it goes 2 rounds, ends in a TKO, and it wins fight of the night. So talk to me about it.
Man, well, first of all, I did say that Matt Brown would get a bonus, didn't I? I did.
And he did.
And he did. So, man, that fight was just crazy because they just came in and they were just throwing. There wasn't no ground game in their heads. They were just going to stand up and beat the shit out of each other. And Matt Brown wasn't backing down. He's been on a mission. I even tweeted this. I mean, it's he's got to get a top 10 guy next. 5 in a row, and it's just not 5 in a row either. I mean, he's knocking motherfuckers out. So I mean, he came in on a mission. He seemed like he was determined, and the kid's 21 years old. I mean, he's got a ton of fights, but he just seemed like once he started getting hit, he didn't know what to do with what else. I mean, all he was doing was trying to throw and hopefully clip Matt and knock him out. And he had him hurt one time when he was on the ground. You know, he caught that body section on Brown, and I was thinking, oh man, this might be a turnaround, but nope, came back, and Matt Brown just has a heart. It was a great fight. Matt Brown knocking another person out and looked good on the stand-up. It was coming. He got a tough-ass chin. Got hit a couple times and just walked right through it. And now I definitely want to see him in a high top 10 opponent so he can work his way to that title shot.
Yeah, you know what? I don't want to really discredit Jordan Meehan here because his star was on the rise prior to this. He took the fight on short notice. Again, you don't really get props for that. You do, but it's a high risk, high reward. You're either gonna get rewarded for it by a victory, or you're gonna either way you kind of gain something. But if you get blasted, you get blasted. That's that. Now here's my thing with Jordan Meehan. I'm gonna give you an analogy here, which is something from like when you're a kid. Remember the first time you ever played basketball with a grown man? And he throws an elbow to your feet. He don't give a shit about you. He fouls you. You run your mouth. He knocks you down. Throws elbows at you. And you grow up that day. You're like, all right, I'm either going to stop playing basketball with grown men or I'm going to become a grown man, one or the other. That's what happened, I think, with Jordan Meehan. Jordan Meehan ran into a grown man on Saturday night, and he stood in there. And ultimately he got taken out. But, I think this was a fight where he said, okay, there's still another. I mean, and even Matt Brown is going to find out. There's a lot of levels to mixed martial arts. There's not just prelims, main cards, championship guys. There's the guy I can run through, the guy that gives me some trouble, the guy this, that, the other. And I even tweeted this, or I can't remember if I did it for my personal one or from the Hot Cage one. But Matt Brown took Jordan Meehan into the deep water, and Meehan was dog paddling, and Matt Brown was fucking backstroking. So, and that's what happened at the end of the day. I mean, that's what he learned. Matt Brown lives in deep water. You know what I mean? He he's got red shorts on. That guy's a fucking lifeguard. So, he's no joke. So I think that you're right. I think that he deserves a top 10 guy. Now, here's the problem. He fights at 170 pounds. And the top 10 guy, the 10th guy in UFC rankings. Now, this is not post Fox on 7, is Josh Koscheck. So, do you like Matt Brown fighting Josh Koscheck?
No, you got to give me somebody higher than that. Koscheck is kind of on his way down, in my opinion. Are we going to call him the gatekeeper now? Is that the status we're going to put Koscheck? I think you have to bypass Koscheck on that and jump him up to somebody that can give him a little bit more competition, and it's not really that gatekeeper type. I mean, ultimately it could be a fight, but I don't know if Brown should take it, because Koscheck is a stand-up guy. He can work the stand-up, but ultimately I want somebody. If I'm him, I would ask somebody in the top 5.
Top 5?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, I definitely don't agree with that. But I'll say this. I'll say this about Matt Brown. Here's what we got. Bottom 5. I'll give you bottom 5 welterweight division right now. Josh Koscheck, which you don't like, I do. Robbie Lawler, Tarek Saffiedine, who I think are fighting each other. Martin Kampmann, Nick Diaz, Damian Maia. The problem with Matt Brown, honestly, and I don't think it's Matt Brown's fault. I don't know whose fault it is I think that we've already labeled Matt Brown. He already is who he is for us. So the toughest thing, man, is once you get a label is shaking it. Good or bad. A guy like Rampage, he knocks a couple guys out, and we think forever he's going to be that Rampage. And, you got to get your heart broken a couple times, but you're always going to keep going to the well thinking he's going to do it. Matt Brown, despite who he seems to be running through, you always look at him as like, I just can't imagine a world when I would ever see Nick Diaz and Matt Brown fighting. He's number 6. So maybe Martin Kampmann, maybe Tarek Saffiedine, maybe Robbie Lawler. I don't know. I mean, to me, like I said, man, Josh Koscheck makes a lot of sense to me. All right, so giving credit where credit is due, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there to MMA Mania, because they do this thing called Joe Silva's Shoes, where they just kind of say who's best next up for fighters. And for Matt Brown, they said that he should fight Patrick Cote. So what are your thoughts on that fight?
Patrick Cote, why? I don't see any upside to that for Matt Brown. I don't know why they would say Patrick Cote. Actually, that kind of puzzles me, so I don't know.
But you don't agree with that, so you're saying he should fight who? You got him in the top 10, right?
Yeah,
at least fighting wise.
Yeah, I got him in the top 10, at least fighting wise. I mean, he's won 5 in a row, had some nice knockouts, and I mean, according to the UFC top 10. Yeah, I think he should fight somebody in the top.
All right, I mean that sounds good to me. I just think that I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Cote, but who knows? All right, so up next, let's go ahead and go to the guy who I think did himself the most favors this week, which was Josh the Punk Thompson. He defeated Nate Diaz, just blasted him out with strikes, round 2. So talk to me about Thompson.
Man, Thompson came in, had a game plan, and he stuck to it. Definitely, he didn't fall into Diaz's head games when he was talking in the ring. Basically, stuck, move, worked the ring. He looked damn. Out of all the fighters, I would have to say Josh probably looked the most impressive of the night.
We forget, because sometimes with Strikeforce guys, they're kind of buried based on where they fought before. This is a serious guy. I mean, a lot of people think that he beat Gilbert Melendez in their last fight. He's beaten him before, so they've had a trilogy. But he beat KJ Noons. I mean, this is really a serious guy. And as far as the head games go, listen, Josh Thompson has a checkered past as well. So Nate Diaz isn't the first guy that's ever talked shit to Josh Thompson. Right. So, and he acted like it. I mean, he went in there. Like you said, he had a game plan. Not only did he have a fight game plan, he had a career game plan. He really, like I said, he was in the UFC before, had 2 wins and a loss, but the loss was to Yves Edwards. And really what happened was, turned his back on Yves, went to throw, I think, a spinning elbow, and the elbow didn't get there as fast as the Eve Edwards leave my feet high kick to the head got there.
Right.
And, I mean, he got knocked out on something that's, kind of an anomaly. So I like Thompson a lot, dude. I'm about to write a piece about him on Cage Wall. I think that Thompson really made himself the most money moving forward from this fight. What do you see down the pike for Josh Thompson? There's talk of him maybe fighting Melendez next. There's some talk about him. Well, I'll tell you, what I think he should do next is going to be a finish strong. But give me your thoughts on Josh Thompson moving forward.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's already fought Melendez 3 times, and if you remember, he's lost twice. So I don't know if Melendez is a great fight, but I'd probably move him up. But definitely, I would have to say one more fight. And I don't know if Melendez is a great fight just because they've fought 3 times. I know this is the UFC, so outcomes could be different, especially the way he looked Saturday night. So I'd probably throw him in with a 3-4 guy, and then give him a title shot.
Well, again, referencing Joe Silva's shoes, the piece from MMA Mania, they got him fighting the winner of Rafael Dos Anjos and Evan Dunham. I don't know about that. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a good fight. I just think, to me, if you're going to give if Melendez is going to walk into a title shot, and Thompson did what he did to Nate Diaz, who's fought for the belt, I don't know, man. I can't see him. I think fighting Dos Anjos or Evan Dunham's a step down.
Oh, absolutely, it's a step down. I was just thinking, maybe, I don't know. Maybe who maybe I like to see him fight would be Donald Cerrone. Maybe the Cowboy. That might be a good fight.
That'd be a great fight. Again, my only problem is I can't see him moving down to fight guys who've lost the guys he beat. You know what I mean? So Nate Diaz beat Donald Cerrone. And now you're going to say, hey, congratulations for beating the fuck out of Nate Diaz. Why don't you fight a guy that he's already beaten?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, all you have in front
all right, so go ahead.
All you have in front of him really is Gray Maynard and Showtime.
Yeah, and Showtime's fighting Jose Aldo. So what they're going to do with Benson Henderson, well, we'll get to Benson Henderson in a second. So I think between Benson Henderson, we talk about that fight, and our finish strong, we're going to kind of hash out Josh Thompson. All right, up next was what we thought was going to be one hell of a co-main event. Didn't really amount to much. Daniel Cormier defeated Frank Mir by unanimous decision. It was a sweep across the board, 30-27s. Not really a spectacular fight to watch, but what'd you think about it?
No, it was one of the, it was the most boring fight on the card, and basically, it was just a lot of rubbing the ring, and it was pinned up and up. It was a little bit of dirty boxing, but not much. There wasn't much excitement in it, and I mean, if you really look at it, the shots that Daniel landed was a lot more than Frank Mir. Frank Mir just looks like he couldn't pull the trigger. And I even think I tweeted this. Mir was fighting not to get knocked out and not to win. I mean, it just, I don't know who that guy was. He really didn't show up. And we all thought that moving to Greg Jackson's camp would change him up a little bit. But, I don't know. He's got to get past something. And I don't know what it is, but he's got to get past it because that performance Saturday night was kind of embarrassing.
And it was, and I tweeted out that I think that Frank Mir fought that fight with a goddamn ski mask on because he made $200,000 for that fight, and it was about $199,000 too much because he didn't do shit. And for a guy of Frank Mir's caliber, and I wish I could give Cormier the props that I want to give him, to say that he's the reason why. Frank Mir just did not engage, wouldn't pull the trigger. He showed no sense of. For me, I learn a lot about a fighter at the end of the round.
Right.
All right. When you know 30 seconds is left in the round, and you hear those clickety clacks, and you're not coming forward on them, either you think you're winning or you just don't give a shit. Right. So I know he didn't think he was winning, so it tells me he didn't give a shit. So congrats to you, Frank Mir. You got a nice payday, but what I tweeted out was that he should have been paid about maybe 10 grand, and the other 190 grand should have been split amongst the prelim fighters who broke their asses to put on a hell of a show. So I don't know, man. I don't know what's next for Frank Mir. I really don't care at this point. I think that he's probably one of the better analysts to be there, laying and waiting, and he's definitely going to be a great. There's money out there for Frank Mir. He could either be an analyst. He used to do play-by-play for WEC, so he always has that. And obviously, there's not a lot of great heavyweight jiu-jitsu fighters, so he could always, train. He'd be a hell of a training partner for heavyweight jiu-jitsu guys. Yep. So, I mean, he's got options, but if this is what he's bringing to the table, and he's going to be bringing to the octagon moving forward, I think it's I don't want to call it a disgrace, man, because you don't know what someone's going through when they fight, when they put a performance on like that. But it's like you're the co-main event. You talked a lot of shit. Obviously you're not gonna come in a fight and go, I'm really not up for this fight. But at the same time, I just have a problem with Frank Mir continuing to get big fights if those are the performances. I mean, we don't know what we're gonna get from this guy, man. He's hot and he's cold, and I'm very disappointed in this fight. What do you see from both Cormier and Mir moving forward?
I mean, Cormier, I think he had a little bit of jitters going in, like you said, but moving up, he's undefeated still. It wasn't the greatest fight. He's got that one fight under the UFC now. So definitely, is he going to drop down to light heavyweight? We don't know. I mean, he dropped some weight. He was weighing, 235 coming into that fight. So, 30 more pounds is going to drop down and go after that title. Me personally, that's what I'd probably do, because working Frank Mir like that, it didn't impress me enough, not in the slightest, that thinks he could compete with somebody like Junior Dos Santos, who has heavy hands in the heavyweight class. And plus, Kane, they're training partners, so I don't even think they want to fight each other.
Well, yeah, the talk is he wants to go to 205, but which would be fine. I just think that kind of similar to the what was the Uyeno-Yama fight earlier with Benavidez. I don't think Frank Mir did Cormier any favors. The whole point of Frank Mir fighting Daniel Cormier in Strikeforce originally was going to be to find out what Cormier was made of. We still don't know what Cormier is made of, because we do, but not from the Frank Mir fight. And let me tell you something, man. If you got octagon jitters fighting the co-main against Frank Mir, you're going to piss your pants if you're fighting the main against John Jones. So if he's got some octagon jitters, he needs to, I don't know, man, sleep with a nightlight or some shit, because it ain't going to work, man. This ain't going to get the job done. He's gonna be an underachiever moving forward if he can't get over those octagon jitters, because it's not going to get easier. I think I understand where he's coming from. First fight in the UFC, a lot of hype behind you, but moving forward, man, the bar's only going to be raised. It's not going to get easier for him. So if he's not ready for it, he's going to be, he's going to really be overwhelmed by the situation. So, and exactly, MMA Mania, that's what they had. They got Cormier fighting the winner of John Jones, Chael Sonnen, which is, I think everybody feels like it's a foregone conclusion that Jones is going to win. I tweeted with Adam Martin. He says that's why he thinks this fight's got no hype, because everybody's sick of Chael's shit, and they think Jones is going to win. But is that what you see for Cormier? Do you think he's ready to fight John Jones next fight?
No, I don't. I think he needs to get one more. He definitely needs to get one fight in the light heavyweight just to see, because if he's cutting that much weight and he goes in somebody like John Jones, who's proven day in and day out that dude is just a monster. You throw him in there coming off a weight loss like that and a training camp, I just don't think he can handle John Jones. I think it'd be too much for him. So I'd give him one, if he's going to drop the weight, give him one fight in the 205, just to kind of a warm up to see how he reacts to it, and then probably throw him in there.
I got a name for you. You ready for it? At 205?
Yep.
Brandon Vera.
That would be a damn good fight, because both stand-ups and Brandon Vera has some great jiu-jitsu on the ground. He has a good ground game, so if it went there, I'd like to see how that would react. I think that would be a great fight.
First of all, Brandon Vera is on milk cartons right now. I haven't seen the son of a bitch since he fought Shogun. So I don't even know if he's
available to fight. I mean, I know that he has a Twitter, and I see him tweet occasionally, but, GSP taught us who the hell knows if these guys are tweeting for real anyway. So I don't know if it's his wife tweeting and Brandon's, starring on the next season of Survivor, or I don't know what the hell happened to the guy. He fought Shogun, and he's, riding this loss for everything it's worth. But I'd like to see him against Cormier because Vera's kind of built similarly to Jones. He's a former heavyweight, got great Muay Thai. So if Cormier wants to grapple with him and he gets lazy, Vera will put some knees in his mouth. So that's a fight I'm really interested in if Brandon Vera is still alive. So if he is, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the main event of the evening. Which was interesting that we kind of took a different approach with this post-fight show. We usually go top to bottom, but we went bottom to top this time just because it was such a great card. So the big guys, well, they're 155-pounders, but they were the big names on this card. Benson Henderson defeated Gilbert Melendez. It was a split decision. First, I want to tell you something I read, and I want to get your thoughts on it. The one guy that voted for Gilbert Melendez officially was God, his name escapes me. I'll track it down here, but anyway, the guy who it was that voted for him, the judge that judged in his favor, runs a Cesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu affiliate school.
Oh, really?
Your thoughts?
Wow. If that doesn't bring some shit into play, I don't know what does. Because I mean, personally, I think Gilbert worked enough, and it just seemed like to me I had it kind of going for Gilbert as well. But when you have an affiliation with something, that should have been just outlawed right there to not even be able to be a judge of that. That's conflict of interest at its best. I mean, that's kind of, yeah, I can't believe that happened. I don't even have no words for that right now.
Well, here's what I find interesting. I just don't understand. You know what? We get on this podcast and we have a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing it. But on some level, I feel like we should just scrap the whole thing and go be judges. Because if they're at such a loss for judges, and there's such a shortage of judges, that they got a guy that they can't see. A guy that has an affiliation with Cesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu shouldn't be judging Gilbert Melendez. I mean, what do we not have judges? Is there no one? How is there? We're now at UFC. What's the next one? 159.
Yeah.
So there's been 159 UFCs. All right. I would say since about UFC 70, from UFC 70 back all the way to UFC 1, none of those guys are still fighting, right? So
Right.
Why the hell can't they be judges? I mean, who better to judge a fight than former UFC fighters? You never see those guys. You get all these guys that are Nevada State Athletic Commission, California State Athletic Commission, who also judge boxing. They're as dirty as hell, and they've had hands in their pockets for years, and we're just going to keep letting them do it. So anyway, let's move on to the fight. You just said that you had it for Gilbert. What rounds did you have it for Gilbert?
I had, I think I gave him the first and the fifth, and I would have probably given him probably even 2, 1, 2, and 5. That's where I probably give him, because that's where he's looked at it. And I think 3 and 4 he kind of he let up on the gas a little bit, and that's where ultimately he lost, of course. But that's what I was giving him, the 1, the 2, and the 5th.
And that seems to be the consensus. The people that went for Henderson gave Henderson the second. Everybody seems to be in agreement that Henderson won the first. Melendez won the first. Henderson won 3 and 4, and then it starts to get a little murky from there. So, and I guess one of the judges gave Henderson the 5th, and the other 2 didn't. So that kind of swung things in Henderson's favor. So moving forward, Dana White said that T.J. Grant and Gray Maynard are going to fight, and the winner gets Benson Henderson. That's not how I think it should go, but is it how you think it should go?
Well, I mean, that's the next line, right? Gray Maynard's number 4, I believe, or number 3. I'm sorry, and so I don't know. T.J. Grant's number 7. So if he wins, do you give him the title shot? I mean, it's kind of murky. If you look down the roll, it's Melendez, Pettis, Maynard, Diaz, Miller, Cerrone, Grant. and it becomes a little murky there because don't forget you have Josh Thompson too now that's in the mix. Diaz just lost. Cerrone lost to Diaz, and so it's kind of and to Showtime. So I mean it's a little murky, and I don't know. That's pretty much the most logical because everybody has a fight going forward, so that leaves Maynard and Grant. So that's where it's going to have to be, unless you let Thompson jump them all and put him in the title fight. I mean, they both fought on the same card, so that might be the easiest one to get to would be throw Josh in there and see what he can do.
All right, for the record, the guy who called the fight for Melendez, who was a Cesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu affiliate, is Wade Vieira, is the guy's name. So get on his Twitter and email him, whatever, tell him you had no business judging that fight. I'm sure he probably doesn't give a shit, but that's bothersome to me that was even let to happen. So all right. So let's talk about Benson Henderson for a second. He seems to be fashioning a career much like George St. Pierre in that he finishes no one and seems to win these close decisions. GSP's decisions aren't really close, but I don't know, man. Is Benson Henderson kind of getting too close to the flames and going to get burnt soon, or do you see him being able to continue to kind of edge out these decisions? It seems like at the end of a lot of them, he's wiping his brow. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a little too conference, but if you throw Grant or Maynard in front of him, I think that's going to be another decision fight that he will win. And it's somebody going to have some knockout power that can really push him and keep him backing up and moving, that can close the ring off, that can get him, because he likes to back up, he likes to counter, and then he'll come in. But right now, with everybody that's lining in front, with Maynard and Grant, I still think he's got those two. Either one of those fights, he'll win. So I really wanted to see Showtime Pettis and that fight again. But right now, whoever's in line, it doesn't seem like that's going to beat him decisively. And like you said, he does enough to win. He's not looking for the knockout. He has a game plan. He sticks to it. And if he has to take a decision, hell, he's the decision maker.
Yeah, and I guess for me, I'm wondering if you think that he, with the conspiracy theories and the collusion and whatnot, are they throwing a fight at Benson Henderson as more winnable than a Josh Thompson fight, or are they just saying, all right, Thompson, because honestly, Thompson beat Nate Diaz, who just fought for the title. So there's a line you can draw there. So anyway, do you think that they're throwing Grant and the winner of Grant and Maynard at Henderson because they feel like it's a winnable fight?
No, I think that's a good question. Yes, I think they might be throwing it because it's a winnable fight. But yet, who on the list do you have besides Showtime? And he's already got a fight. But besides that, you don't have much room to go on. He's already beaten Donald Cerrone. Rafael Dos Anjos. You can throw him in the mix. But most of them, if you really look at the top 10, do you personally see anybody that could really dominate them that's on the top 10 list for the UFC right now?
Who could dominate Benson?
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I think that Benson's in that rare era right now where he's just a better athlete than most of the guys he fights and is able to carry that through. If he was wrestling them, he'd out-wrestle them. If he was doing jiu-jitsu, he'd do that. He'd beat them there too. So, in tournaments. He medaled in the jiu-jitsu tournament he was just in. So, I just think that physically and mentally he's right where he needs to be to kind of outclass whoever he's going to fight. I'll tell you who I think he should fight in my finish strong. I don't think that's going to be a huge surprise to you. But what do you think is next for Gilbert Melendez?
That's a good question because you have the Thompson that maybe you can throw it up there. Besides that, you're gonna throw him in with somebody, both coming off losses, maybe Donald Cerrone. You have those two fight, to catapult them back up in the top because those two guys will give you an exciting fight. So maybe that's where I'm looking forward to.
All right, so let's go ahead and just get to our finish strong since we're kind of talking about it anyway, and I'll go ahead and put my 2 cents on this 155-pound business. And just so you know, I kind of wore my GSP Affliction shirt today because of Benson Henderson. Benson Henderson to me is completely fashioning a GSP-like career, and I think that's where he's headed. It's a smart move. He's make himself more marketable. I think if they're smart, they'll let him fight on the Seattle card, UFC on Fox 8. So it doesn't have a headliner yet. I don't know how it falls with UFC 160, but I think that they need to let him fight, kind of like GSP, because I think that getting a lot of decisions is going to not do well for his fans. I love Benson Henderson. He's a local guy. I think he's a great fighter. I just think that I would like to see him and GSP push themselves more to get finishes. All right, so I wish they would finish strong like I'm about to. Okay, so what I think should happen at 155 pounds is I think Josh the Punk Thompson should fight Benson Henderson in Seattle. The reason why I feel that way is because he did something Benson Henderson could not do, which is he took Nate Diaz apart. No one finishes Diaz brothers. I think I saw a stat they hadn't been finished since 2004 maybe. Either one of them. And he had the corner throwing the goddamn towel in. Not even, I mean, the ref didn't see it, but it was thrown in. I don't know who threw it in, but it was thrown in. So Thompson looked amazing. And if you're of the belief that he beat Gilbert Melendez in the last fight, which a lot are, then we start to make sense of a fight with Benson Henderson. Now, Gray Maynard, I'm sorry for you, buddy. You probably beat Frankie Edgar in one of those fights. You lost the decision. Then you got the rematch and decisively lost that fight. And now you've kind of been buried a little bit. But I got to admit, with the kind of hands that Gray Maynard has and the kind of hands that Gilbert Melendez has, I'd love to see those two guys fight. I'd love to see TJ Grant stand up with Gilbert Melendez. So let the winner of that fight Gilbert Melendez, and then the winner of that fight gets to fight the winner of Thompson and Henderson. That way we get a Henderson-Melendez rematch or a Thompson-Melendez rematch should they win. And then if those guys are legit, they can go through Gilbert Melendez and earn their title shot. I don't think beating one another is grounds for earning a title shot. That's just my take on it. But I think Josh Thompson is ready. I think that he's a super marketable guy. He's got a good head on his shoulders now. I think that he is really wants to turn things around, and I think he's ready to do it. I think he's poised at 34 to go on a little bit of a run here, and for a couple of years at least, be at the top of the food chain at 55. So I'm going to leave it to you, man. Shut this thing down. Finish strong.
My finish strong is Frank Mir. Frank Mir had one of the best potentials of any heavyweight in history, and yet he had change of camps with one of the best coaches in the world, with Greg Jackson, and yet he came out and he disappointed the Jackson camp and himself. If you're not willing to fight, and if mentally you're not in the game, save us all some trouble and stay out of the ring. If you're not in there to be the true champion that we all think you can, don't come and show up, because it was embarrassing. And as a fan of Frank Mir, I was disappointed by the reaction of the pre-fight and also after the fight. I just feel he has more potential. I think he can do a lot more. But whatever it is that's blocking your mental game, you need to get it fixed. Go see somebody. Talk it out. Because obviously changing camp's not helping, so something else is going on, and he needs to fix it, and he needs to fix it quick if he wants to be a true contender again. Especially after you made that big-ass paycheck that you did. It's heartbreaking to watch somebody that we kind of grew up with get in the ring and put on a performance like that. I think he's better than that. I think he can be better than that with Greg Jackson. So definitely he needs to go get his head checked and come out and let's see what you got.
Sounds good. And more on Frank Mir, it almost seems as if, a lot of guys say I came out flat. I never understood that. I mean, I get it. I know you can come out flat, but it's like, at what point do you stop being flat? Are you just flat for the night? Are you flat, So my problem with Frank Mir is, literally, man, he showed so poorly that in your mind a little bit, some of the Bob Sapp taking a fall shit enters your head, and some of the, it was almost like he fought Daniel Cormier to make $200,000 and to scout Daniel Cormier for John Jones should they ever fight. Like, just to get in there, feel his strength, kind of get an idea. I mean, that's how little of an effort he really put forward. He never made any attempts to really wait. I mean, he did some strikes to the body, some knees, but, I mean, you can count on one hand the amount of offense that he mounted in the entire fight. And like I said, man, if we're looking at a box out situation, if we're looking at guys just showing up to get paid, you know, I mean, with guys out here getting cut that make 10 and 15 grand, you know, you could pay a lot of those guys with 200 grand. Yeah, you know, and if you're gonna, you could pay 20 fighters who fight on prelims for what you paid Frank Mir to just show up and kind of fuck around for three rounds. So Frank, if there's more to it, man, if you're hurt, whatever, come out and let us know, because based on what I saw, you know, your heart's not in it. Lawrence Taylor once said famously, you know it's time to go when you see a pile and you don't want to jump on it. And it's the same thing with fighters, man. The day you start worrying more about yourself than you do about the other guy, it's time to go. And a little mini finish strong here. Nate Diaz made 15 grand for this fight. I tweeted it to Jason Cruz at Dilettante, and it may be the reason why he has a new manager. But 15 grand for a guy that just fought for the belt and is, you know, third down from the main event is disgusting. So listen, Nate Diaz didn't come out there and destroy people, but 15 grand, you guys can do better than paying Nate Diaz 15 grand. I don't know if it was 15 to show, maybe 15 to win. Even that's only 30 grand. So listen, I am far from the guy who's going to sit here and give the UFC financial advice. But 15 grand for a guy that just fought for the belt, it's a disgrace. All right, so what are you looking at moving forward? We got Bones, we got Sonnen. What's on your mind?
You know, that's going to be an interesting fight. You know, I don't know what to really think about it after everything that we've talked to. You know, Chael not talking shit during the tough, and now he's starting to hype it up a little bit, and John Jones is laying back. Do I think it'll be a competitive fight? It could be. I just don't know who's going to show up, which Chael's going to show up. So, you know, I just don't know.
What we do know is that Chael, you know, and listen, for as much bite as he has, his bark is still bigger than his bite. And he's got a lot of bites. That's saying a lot. But it's just like the other night, man. He was on the post-fight with the guys from Fox, and they're asking him direct questions, and this kid just rolls into his WWE shit. Like, he's not even addressing the questions. He's got a bunch of shit written on his hand, probably, that he feels like he has to say, and it's like, Chael, come on, man. We're asking you a question here. What do you think's going to happen? You're running it. You're rolling into your shtick, and it's enough, man. So I think the thing he needs to worry about is that Jones kid, man. He doesn't like to lose. He and he's nasty. You know, for everything you want to say about John Jones, he's nasty, and he finishes. I mean, he's whatever he is, but a lot separates him and GSP. I mean, when you got Lyoto Machida in a standing guillotine and you just fucking drop him, that's nasty. When you finish guys from the top with elbows, that's nasty. I mean, that kid, when you do a spinning back elbow and just face plant a guy, I mean, the kid's nasty, man. He was nasty. He took Shogun out. Took some really, really serious guys like the fuck out. And I think that if Chael is going to get in there and get cute, he'll be able to take him down, man. But I'm telling you, Bones is ready. I think he's going to work the underhooks on him, make him fight Greco, and it's going to get a little silly, man. I think Chael, if you know, God forbid, should Bones get top position, I think that Chael's going to get some skinny ass elbows rained on his forehead. So this may be the ugliest Chael ever leaves the fight, honestly. So okay, that's that for this week. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple of podcasts for you coming up. We got a lot of guys we want to get on. We want to get on the guys from MMA Decisions moving forward. Larry Pepe's talked about coming on. We still owe Shannon Knapp a spot on the show. Some of the Invicta girls. So we got a lot of people we're going to try and get on. Of course, Adam. Of course, Jason. We got big plans for the podcast moving forward. We're ready to drop some folks, Anthony Njokuani style, show these kids what's up. And, you know, if you're listening to us, if you're viewing us on YouTube, spread the word. Follow us on Facebook. Go to Cage Wall. Follow them on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. And, you know, we got a lot of plans, so we're ready to take over the world. TJ, I'll see you next time, brother.
All right, take a good one. Thanks.
All right, as always, this is John Franklin for TJ Craig, the Hot Cage Podcast. Keep your hands up and your chin down, the Hot Cage Podcast.